Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another high altitude investing live stream. Today is the 17th of October, and I'm very excited to be talking about crypto and what I think is going to happen in the markets. So let's get this link shared on X and over here on Discord, and we'll get started here. Cool. Welcome, everybody. It's going to be a good live stream today. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about Bitcoin, altcoins, the crypto markets as a whole. A lot of people see Bitcoin pull back like this. A lot of people read news articles about grayscale and all this stuff, and there's a lot of FUD right now. There's a lot of people afraid. A lot of people calling for bear markets, like a lot of them. And so people's emotions are pretty high right now. There's a lot of different opinions, a lot of different views. So I'm going to try to kind of denounce some of the things that I'm seeing that I believe to be wrong, as well as talk about kind of what the future holds for crypto in today's live stream to really help clear the air. Future Dreams 2K17 says, "Hey bro, following you since 2018. Well, sweet. It's pretty long. That's a long time you've been following my channel. So let's start off with Bitcoin here. And actually, I wasn't going to show this, but I accidentally left it open. So now everybody saw, so they could just pause the video and look at it anyways. But this is something I posted in the VIP area earlier today on Bitcoin. And normally I don't share the VIP stuff, but I accidentally left it open and clicked on it so everybody could pause the stream anyways and come see this on accident. And so whatever, it's already out. Basically, Bitcoin looks a lot like Bitcoin when it fell starting at the beginning of 2025. So when we topped out here at 107,000 and came all the way down to 74,000, we actually did a very similar fractal of emotion as what we're seeing right now on Bitcoin. Excuse me. So, essentially, one of the first things that you see here with this chart is the bullish divergence, right? So we have bullish divergence right here. We have a lower low in price. Then we have a higher low on the MACD. So that's exactly what happened during our bottom in March and April of 2025 when Bitcoin had this big correction here and we saw a lower low in price, but the MACD made a higher low on the indicator. So that was bullish divergence. That led all the way to a new all-time high on Bitcoin. The all-time high being 126,000, right? So pretty similar in terms of psychology here. This whole correction that recently happened and our correction over here that happened at the beginning of this year on Bitcoin. So it's basically just a smaller version of the same thing. And by the way, if you guys weren't here, a lot of you probably were here, but some of you weren't here. And a lot of the people that sold their Bitcoin right here, a lot of those people are bearish again right now. There was so much FUD in the market right there. It was ridiculous. People were so bearish on Bitcoin when it fell down to 72K. They were super bearish. And it fully recovered after that correction. But I just remember the FUD being extremely high during that period of time. And if we look at Bitcoin during any of its corrections, the same story all over again. here when Bitcoin fell from 73,000 down to 50,000 right here. Same story. Everybody was calling for 30K. People were super, super bearish during that period. Bitcoin falling from 108,000 down to 74,000. Again, people were super bearish, crazy bearish, right? If you look at Bitcoin falling from 69,000 down to 15,000, even more bearish. People were so bearish down here. The amount of people that made bullish content was very few. So you guys get the point, right? When Bitcoin sees a correction, people think it's dead. They always call for massive bear markets. It always recovers and it continues to go higher. And usually, by the way, just so you guys know, I've never, ever, ever, not once in the entirety of my entire trading career, have I ever seen the majority of people call a bear market and then one actually happen. Ever. I've never seen that. And yet people think that for some reason it's just going to be the time that when all of their favorite YouTubers and everybody on X and everybody on TradingView are all calling for a bear market, that somehow all of them are going to be right. I have seen everybody call for a bear market at local bottoms over and over again, including 3K Bitcoin, when Bitcoin fell when it topped out in 2018 and then fell to 3K after hitting 20. 90% of people on X, on YouTube, were calling for $1,000 per coin. Some of you guys remember this. Some of you guys were here even way back then. Majority of people were calling for a bear market on Bitcoin at the exact bottom at 3K. Calling for $1,000 per coin, calling for $500 per coin. I saw people calling. And the bottom was 3K. Same thing right here. People were calling for a deeper bear market on Bitcoin at 16K. Huge majority. Especially right here during the COVID drop when Bitcoin fell from 10K down to 3K again. Everybody was bearish. Everybody was calling for a deeper correction. Everybody thought that this was a big ABC, that this was wave A, that this was wave B, and that we were going to go for a deeper C wave. It was like the thing to post on X or whatever, TradingView. They were all calling for a deep correction down to like a K or $500, like $1,000 or $500 right there was common. So what's the point? The point I'm trying to make is you seriously cannot follow the crowd. When everybody's calling for something, the probability of that thing being the thing that happens is very low. And I know what all of you guys are saying. Oh, well, I see plenty of people that are bullish. Look, if you get on X, if you get on YouTube, if you go on tradingview.com, 90% of people are bearish. You might see some people that are bullish, but 90% of people are bearish right now. And that's just how it is. Everybody on my TradingView, everybody on my X account, everybody on the internet is bearish. Professor K says, hey, Dallin, you think the bottom is in? I think it's 100% possible. If I was to call a local bottom on Bitcoin, I would say right now is 100% possible to be our local bottom for Bitcoin. The main reason for this, by the way, is because of how much horizontal support that we have in this area right here. You know, even though this little low right here wasn't the bottom and we went a little bit deeper, this area right here, this zone of support and resistance is massive. And whenever you have a big, massive support and resistance zone, that's a really good opportunity to be buying that asset on support. Bitcoin is on support. The other thing, if you missed at the beginning of the live stream, Professor K, I was comparing Bitcoin today to Bitcoin at the beginning of the year. So we have Bitcoin over here at the beginning of the year, and we have Bitcoin today. And one of the things that you'll see here, when Bitcoin bottomed out at the beginning of the year, after it dropped in February, it bottomed out in March and April. And when it bottomed out, it did bullish divergence. So we have a lower low in price on Bitcoin, and we have a higher low on the MACD. And that's exactly what Bitcoin just did, is a lower low with a higher low on the MACD. So that's actually a really strong buy signal for Bitcoin to see a higher low like that on the MACD. And it reminds me a lot of the crash that we saw at the beginning of the year for Bitcoin. It's just a smaller version. But what's crazy to me is the FUD right now. The FUD that I'm seeing in the markets is probably the highest I've seen since down here. Since Bitcoin was at 75,000. The FUD right now in the markets is equal, like just as high as it was when Bitcoin was at 75K. But you have to understand that Bitcoin had fell from 109,000. So that was a 31% correction, whereas this is a 17%. Are you guys, how many people, it's like everybody became a weakling all of a sudden. A 17% correction and everybody's whining and calling for a bear market. Like, you guys, we went through 31% corrections at the beginning of the year. Why are you so bearish and so like it's so weak? You know? There's just, it's crazy to me. So to answer your question, Professor K, it does look like a local bottom. A lot of people are being weak. They've got weak hands. It just blows my mind that people think like that, but whatever. Shrapnel says liked and comment. All right, thank you, Shrapnels, for telling everybody to like and comment. James Ettinger says, please go over Wrapped Dog. Its strength over the past couple weeks has been incredible. Yeah, Wrapped Dog has been doing really well. If you look at Wrapped Dog here, let's go to the daily. It's definitely been climbing up off these local lows right here. We've started to bounce off of our horizontal support level in the zone right here. And I think we're going to keep pushing up. We could easily pull back a little bit deeper right here, mainly because Wrapped Dog kind of seems to lead the market in a lot of ways. So like before the big crash happened in 2025, Wrapped Dog had already started crashing. So like Wrapped Dog started to crash, and then Bitcoin and all this other stuff crashed too. So it seems to be like a little bit ahead of the rest of the market in everything that it's doing in a lot of ways. So what I see here is the Wrapped Dog started to bottom out. I think the rest of the market will start to bottom out soon. Wrapped Dog could pull back a little bit, find support like that on the short term, and then keep pushing higher. But it's kind of ahead of the rest of the market. It already started to bottom out. It's been going up when everything else went down. So it's looking really good. Let's keep that open, actually. Tony H. says, hi, Dallin. Greetings from Spain. I'm feeling the stress like everyone else, but I believe in the thesis, and I'm thankful for and appreciative of you. Yeah, it's easy to get stressed out during times like this. It's easy to let your emotions get the best of you. If you want to feel emotions, I would say generate emotions that aren't, indecision or fear, but generate emotions of confidence. A lot of people, like, a really good way to fuel your emotions is let your enemies be like like things that you're fighting against, right? A really good example of this would be um, like untruth, anything that's not true. Have an enemy, right? Have an enemy. It doesn't have to be a person, you know, but have some type of enemy. Like if your enemy is falsehood, you want to fire yourself up over anything that's not true, you know. Like a lot of people are bearish right now in the markets, in the crypto markets. A lot of people are really bearish. So the best thing to do during times like this is to be like, you know what? This is stupid. Like a lot of people are just being irrational. They're being idiots, and get kind of fired up and mad about how many people are being dumb. Um, so if you want to feel emotions, then just kind of focus on those types of emotions. Fear isn't going to serve you. Indecision isn't going to serve you. Which is the most common emotions most people are feeling right now, Tony. So I would just say avoid those emotions and try to channel it somewhere else. Lego King is cool says, hey Dallin, can Dogecoin hit $2 this year? What's your end of year predictions? A lot of people, here's the thing. What I've been kind of talking about for a while now is a mass adoption phase for crypto. I've never been in the boat of people that thinks that crypto is just going to top out at the end of this year, which is a little bit of a different position because the majority of people, the most common things that I'm seeing right now is a belief in the 4-year cycle. I even have people that I highly respect that believe in the 4-year cycle. So there's a pretty big belief in the 4-year cycle. There's also a pretty big belief in this whole idea of, like, because of the 4-year cycle, there's this really big belief in this whole idea that, like, by the end of this year, like within the next 2 months, a lot of people believe the entire market is going to be topped out, right? And again, I actually highly respect people. There's some people in my life that I highly, highly respect that have this belief. They're really smart people too. In fact, some of the smartest people I know. So I totally understand why people believe in the 4-year cycle, right? But for me personally, at least since the beginning of this whole cycle, especially when I started to analyze the charts, I started to look at things and I went, this seems different to me. This doesn't seem like a typical 4-year cycle. Let's pull up XRP on Bitstamp instead of Coinbase. One thing that kind of stood out to me when I started looking at the charts is I said, well, what led to our first cycle in crypto? And I promise I'm going to answer your question about Dogecoin, but first I have to kind of lay a little groundwork here for you guys to understand what I'm thinking. So we have XRP, right? In XRP, before we had a big bull market in 2017, XRP did an accumulation cycle. So there was accumulation before there was a big pump. So here's the big pump in 2017 right here, right? Before this big pump happened in 2017, the market had to do something to lead up to that. And what did the market do to lead up to that? Well, if we pull up XRP here and you go back to kind of this first cycle, we actually need a bigger time frame, not a smaller one. There we go. If we look at this first initial cycle before XRP went to the moon, this cycle started in 2013. So we have basically the end of 2013 though, so it was almost 2024 or 2014. I mean, but this cycle started in 2013. It went from 2013 into 2014 into 2015, 2016, and then 2017 it mooned, right? But essentially, if you were to count from the bottom right here of this correction, it's basically 4 years, right? So if you're only counting 2014 and kind of ignoring 2013 because it was pumping, basically 4 years. If you were to count 2013, 5 years, right, before it went vertical. So if you look at our current cycle on XRP, it looks the same. You know, it looks exactly the same. We can take our tool here. Let's take our bars pattern tool. And you can copy this cycle like this. And you can paste it, maybe. Where did it go? Oh, there we go. You can paste it over here. Right? Then we'll come over here. And we'll stretch this out a little bit here. And let's take a look at our current cycle. Okay. So the cycle looks the same essentially, right? It looks very similar. Here's our current cycle right here, this green bit right here, and here is the first cycle below it. And what you can see here is how it's really the same thing. You have this big pump right here. You have a double bottom that happens afterwards. You start to pump again, but you see a big correction. And look at XRP's first cycle. You have a big pump right here. You have another pump right here, double bottom, and then you have a big correction. So it's the same thing, right? But it's not the same thing. Because if you look at XRP currently, let's count 2017 since we counted 2013 anyways and we just called it 5 years. But if you count XRP currently, you've got 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, and now we're pumping. So that's not 5 years. That's almost 10. That's like 9 years. Right? So, to answer your question about Dogecoin, do I think Dogecoin is going to hit $2 by the end of the year? No, I don't. Does that make me bearish? No, it just means that I have a different opinion than 90% of the people that are doing Dogecoin analysis. Because 90% of people, or a good majority of people, do believe in the 4-year cycle, and they believe the Dogecoin will magically be at $2 before the end of the year. And I don't see it that way, just because the cycles are bigger. Even if you count Dogecoin here, counting 2021, right? So the XRP cycle lasted how long? 5 years, okay? This Dogecoin cycle, we have 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. So there's 5 years, okay? So kind of similar to the XRP thing. But the thing is XRP was already going vertical on the 5th year. Dogecoin isn't doing that yet. So it's longer. It's a longer cycle. It's not twice as long, but it's definitely longer than that XRP cycle we're looking at in terms of years that it took. XRP was already going vertical and pumping. Now, a lot of people see this and they think, oh, this is exactly why I'm bearish, because the markets haven't taken off yet. It's clear that they're not going to, and they're already giving up on a pump. But to be honest with you, I think that's kind of stupid to do that because the markets themselves don't show any significant reason to be bearish. There's no there's nothing that's changed in these charts. They look the same. They they still look like a cycle, like any other cycle we've ever seen. Do I think Dogecoin will moon in the next 2 months? Yeah, I think it'll start to bottom out and start to moon. Do I think Dogecoin will hit $2? Yeah, I firmly believe Dogecoin will hit $2. Do I think it's going to happen by the end of the year? I highly doubt it. Do I think that we could be even at our all-time high by the end of the year? Yeah, we could be up to 70 cents by the end of the year. It's not likely. We could be up to 50 cents. That's more likely to me if we get a strong V-shaped recovery like what we saw over here on Bitcoin. But to me, Dogecoin just looks exactly like Bitcoin. Okay? If you look at Bitcoin in 2020 right here, where we had this big panic right here, it's the same thing, you guys. It's the same chart. If you look at Bitcoin, when Bitcoin fell from 10K down to 3K before it went to a new all-time high, and you look at Dogecoin today, it's the same thing to me. I don't really see a difference. So yeah, by the end of the year, Dogecoin could be at 40 cents, 50 cents. It could even be at 70 cents. I don't think it's likely, but I do think we will start to bottom out and go vertical. I do think we are going to start to do this right here, where the markets go like this. But if even just drawing on the chart like this, that's more looking like mid 2026 before we're at $1, you know. This is why I think 2026 could be a really big year for crypto, because a lot of people are really bearish right now, like super bearish, but the charts, the setups haven't changed at all. And when you just look at the charts, it looks like 2026 is going to be a very, very, very big year for crypto. You know, it looks amazing. So yeah, you just stay focused, you guys, on the charts and have an enemy. I know that sounds kind of weird to say, but have an enemy. I've been reading this book by Patrick Bet-David, and it's a book called Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And he talks about picking enemies in life and how it's a really good way to fire you up and to fuel emotion. And one of the things that he talks about is having not people necessarily be your enemy, although some people do that, but to have things that you're fighting against. And if you believe in crypto like I do, I believe in crypto, then all of the people that are bearish, all of the people that are thinking the markets are going to go down, all of the people that are sharing charts like that, let that be your enemy. If you believe in crypto, you should be bullish on the markets, and you should hate people's analysis that doesn't agree with that. You know, I'm not saying to be blind. I'm not saying just to be bullish just because it's what you want to do. I'm saying to have an accurate view of the market to what you believe to be true, and anything that goes against that, just completely denounce it and don't take it, don't believe it at all. That will get you fired up, I promise you it will. Brian, or let's see, no, that's Brickaz0613 says, "What's up, brother? BCH bag down 90K, but ice in the veins, baby. See you on the moon." That's funny. Yeah, I would agree that people, you know, even though BCH is down, we're going to see each other on the moon. I agree 100%. People see a correction like this, they get so bearish, and it happens every time. And it's ridiculous. But to be frankly honest with you guys, even BCH kind of looks like Bitcoin here and back in the day. I mean, look at this. Big pump, big correction, start to break out, have another big correction right here, not near as big. This is pretty similar. Look at this. You can see it's almost the same thing here. Bitcoin in 2020, right before it went to the moon, and Bitcoin Cash today. So I'm bullish on Bitcoin Cash too, still. Professor K says, always think that someone else has it worse than us. Yeah, that's 100% true. Even if it's not financially, it's physically. You know, you think you have it bad, you have back pain or something like that. And yeah, that sucks. And I'm sure it really sucks to have that. But there's people that are blind, people that don't have legs, there's people that don't have anything. And sometimes they end up being more confident in themselves, and they end up making more out of their lives than a lot of people that have just kind of mild problems, you know? So don't view your problems as something that's like a curse, because it's really not. Whatever you have, it's not a curse. It can really be your biggest blessing and your greatest asset if you know how to look at it in the right way. So I agree, Professor K, that there's a lot of people out there that have it way worse than us. And to remember that can absolutely be a source of fuel for what you're doing. XRP institutional adaption. I guess you're meaning adoption. Adaption. XRP institutional adaption. LFG all in. You know, I'm super bullish on XRP. I'm a big XRP bull. This right here, you guys, do you want to know what this is right here on XRP? This is an expanded flat correction, or I mean a running flat correction right here. If you look up running flat Elliott wave, that's what this is. This is a running flat Elliott wave. Where's a good example here? Here we go. Or maybe it's just a flat correction. I don't think it's a running flat. Looks like no, it is a running flat. Yeah, it is a running flat. I'm right. There we go. I knew thought I was right, but then somebody showed a chart on Google and it made me think I was wrong for a second. Somebody's chart here. That's a regular flat. You can tell because the wave A and the wave C is the same. But if you look at a running flat, the C wave is actually higher than the A wave. They don't land on the same place. So this is what a running flat looks like. Wave C ends up being a little bit higher than wave A, whereas a normal flat correction is just flat, right? The C wave stops at the same point as the A wave. That's why it's called a flat correction, because it's flat. But a running flat, you have a higher low, right? So wave C comes for a higher low. And that's what XRP is. It's a running flat correction. Some similar corrections to this. There's quite a few that are pretty similar to this. One that comes to mind right off the bat, it's a little bit different. It's the S&P 500, which did an expanded flat correction. If we pull up the S&P 500 here and we take a look here, it did a very similar correction as what we're seeing with XRP. The difference being is that it was an expanded flat. How do you know? It looks almost the same as a running flat, but wave C ends up going a little bit lower than wave A. So that's a running flat correction. And it's pretty common to have these corrections in the markets. So XRP, I agree, XRP is going to go crazy. It's a big running flat correction. I've seen these before. They have a tendency to lead to big bullish breakouts, just like what we see over here with the S&P 500. Huge bullish breakout. It went to the moon after it did a running flat, right? So just, you got to understand your patterns. You got to understand the human emotion. People are dumb. It's just that, trust me, there's a lot of really smart people out there, but equally so, there's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing at all. And so that's why when the markets drop like this, 90% of people go bearish. Everybody calls for a bear market. They all get super, super irrational. You guys, look at the charts. Don't be dumb. Don't be bearish when there's a correction. Don't panic sell when everybody else is freaking out. Please, please don't be an idiot. I know it's so tempting, but don't be one. Stay level-headed. The market's going to recover. This is really only the start for crypto. The bull market is not over. There's a reason I said the whales are playing mind games. The bull market is not over. That's the title of today's live stream. And the reason for that is because that's what I firmly believe to be true, is that the whales are playing mind games right now. You could go look for so many reasons to sell your crypto, but don't do it. Okay? As tempting as it is, don't be an idiot. Man of Visuals, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you. Sleeping Korean guy, what is up, bro? Thank you for tuning in. Huge warm greetings from South Korea, biggest fan. Please take a look at T-Drop, pumping hard. Yeah, let's look at T-Drop. Versus the dollar, not the Korean won. Unless you want me to look at it versus the Korean won. If you're in South Korea, I can do that. It's up to you. I normally do TA on the dollar, but I'd be happy to cover T-Drop on the South Korean won for you. Let's pull up the one that has volume here. So the dollar chart, we did go slightly for a lower low here. It's no surprise. The thing is markets a lot of times do a false bottom. And the problem is that a lot of times you don't know for sure which one is going to be the real bottom, because sometimes they look a certain way and it's the real bottom, and other times it's a false bottom. For example, here is the NASDAQ Composite Index, and you can see as the NASDAQ started to bottom out, this would have been an area where a lot of people would have thought that was the true bottom, but it went just a little bit lower. Not a lot, but just a little bit lower. So it's pretty common for markets to make false bottoms, go for one more lower low, and then bottom out, like truly bottom out. And especially after the anger phase, there's usually a depression phase, which is what happened here on the NASDAQ. We have an anger phase. We bounce up, then we go into the depression phase, and that ended up being the absolute bottom of the NASDAQ. It did double bottom, so it came back down to that level one more time, but that ended up being the bottom. So here with T-Drop, it's really the same thing here with T-Drop. We have our anger phase right here, and now we're in the depression phase. We went for one more slightly lower low, so that's the depression phase of the cycle. The thing is sometimes it doesn't do that, and that's why you have to buy the dip in the big picture and be open-minded to the market doing a little bit different than what you expect it to do, because it might go for one more lower low. And you basically just have to plan around that and not sell, even if your portfolio goes down 70% or 80%, even if it's a huge drop, 50%, 80%, whatever, you basically just have to have a plan of holding on because the real bottom is coming soon. You know, that's the mindset you need to have. So, like Ethereum, right? Ethereum, if we look at Ethereum did this right here, where it formed a bottom right here, $80. Then it went up to $356, but then it didn't break for a slightly lower low. See, it bottomed out again at around $80. It didn't go for a slightly lower low. So that's why the cycle can look similar but do slightly different things. Some of them go for a slightly lower low. Things like Ethereum didn't. Ethereum didn't go for a slightly lower low. It bottomed out right at $80 and then went to the moon. Okay. An example of a coin that did go for a slightly lower low, something more like T-drop, would be Cardano. If we pull up Cardano here, if you look at Cardano, Cardano did go for a slightly lower low. So we have our bottom right here in December of 2018. Same bottom as right here on Ethereum. Same bottom, same point. But what happened to Cardano is Cardano went for a slightly lower low. So if you look right here on Cardano, you can see our low right here, right? Our support level. We went slightly below that. Ethereum didn't. Ethereum landed on that level and bottomed out. Cardano went slightly below that level and then bottomed out and went to the moon, right? Went completely to the moon. So what you have to understand here, markets will do the same types of things over and over again, but there is going to be slight differences, subtle differences that distinguish one example between another example. And one of the most common things that you will see in the market is a false bottom. But also you see a lot where there isn't a false bottom, where it truly double bottoms instead of has a false bottom. So those are kind of the two scenarios. If there is a false bottom, the market usually bottoms out after one more slightly lower low. So it's never like this big crazy drop. It just goes a little bit lower than the previous low. And then that ends up being the true bottom. I guess it is kind of a big drop, you know. It's just when I say not a crazy drop, I just mean it doesn't generally go much below its last bottom, right? Here is Cardano. Let's pull up theta over here on the right, because theta is a good example of a coin that did not do a double bottom but went for a slightly lower low, right? So let's pull up theta here and let's put it on the log chart, okay? This is kind of an exception to the slightly lower low rule, the wick, right? Because there was just manipulation across big exchanges, and a lot of stuff saw a deep wick. A lot of stuff had a big kind of deep correction. So you kind of have to ignore that and just see this as a slightly lower low, similar to what happened to Cardano, right? You have your low right here, and just imagine that wick isn't there because it was really a manipulation. And how do you know it was a manipulation? Go look at coins like Wrapped Dog. Go look at coins that weren't on major exchanges, and you won't see this big crash. It was only coins that were on major exchanges. So that's how you know, Theta's on Binance. Binance was part of this whole crazy exchange stuff that happened, and we basically have a big wick right here. But essentially, this is the same thing. what happened over here on Cardano and what happened over here on theta, it's essentially the same thing. You have a false bottom right here. Everybody thinks it's the real bottom, and it goes for another low. That low looks really big, really deep here on Binance because there was a bunch of crazy exchange stuff that happened. But if you were to look at that, if you were to look at, in fact, it might even be on some exchanges where this didn't happen. I wouldn't be at all surprised. It happened on OKX. There probably is an exchange out there where this didn't happen. Let's look at it. No, it's gonna still be there. HTX maybe? No, it still happened here. Anyways, a lot of times you can find exchanges where something happened on one exchange, but it didn't happen on another exchange. And that's usually because of a manipulation event. So am I bullish on T-drop? Yes, I am. Am I bullish on theta? Yes, I am. Am I bullish on T-fuel? Absolutely. Don't mind this drop. It reminds me a lot of Cardano when Cardano made another lower low. Ended up being the true bottom in the market. Everybody got shook out right here in March of 2020 because Cardano went to a new low. And that was scary. Everybody thought the bottom was right here at 3 cents and it went for a new low. Of course, people are going to freak out. Same thing is happening right now with theta. Even T-drop, same thing is happening with T-drop. It's making a slightly lower low. Yeah, it's scary. Yeah, a lot of people that thought the bottom was right here are going to freak out because it's lower than that. But this is a pretty common thing to happen in these crypto cycles. Sometimes it bottoms where you think the actual bottom is, and sometimes you're wrong and it goes slightly lower, and you just have to accept that and work with it and not let it destroy your analysis and not let it destroy your confidence, because that's what it does to a lot of people when that happens. Pygo says, what's up, bro? So you don't believe in the 4-year cycle at all? I mean, right now, Bitcoin topped out exactly 1,000 days. I hope to be wrong, but yeah. No, I don't believe in the 4-year cycle, Pygos. So people tend to think the 4-year cycle is this indefinite thing that just happens forever. But Bitcoin didn't do a 4-year cycle on its first cycle. Go look at Bitcoin when it was worth 6 cents and it went all the way up to $31 and then back down to $2. That's not a 4-year cycle. That's a 1-year cycle starting in November and then bottoming out in November. So historically, it hasn't always done 4-year cycles. It did 2 4-year cycles right here and right here. One right here and one right here. But historically, it hasn't always done a 4-year cycle. So no, I don't believe in the 4-year cycle. And no, I don't believe this is the top for Bitcoin. If you look at Dogecoin, something to be aware of here, Pygos, to think about at least and consider, is if you look at Dogecoin, okay, and let's put it on the regular chart, and we take a look at Dogecoin, let's take a look at, because this is kind of your altcoin indicator in a lot of ways, Ethereum too, but Dogecoin is one of those altcoins that, you know, if Doge is pumping, then you know the alt season is really happening. So let's pull up Bitcoin right here, and let's look at Bitcoin right here, okay? And we'll switch it to the linear chart instead of the log chart. To me, this is what's happening right now, Pygos. In terms of the market cycle, this is my personal view on the markets. If you look at Dogecoin, Dogecoin looks a lot like Bitcoin here in March of 2020. So a lot of times what happens in these cycles, what I've been seeing happen historically, especially with Bitcoin is a really good example of this, is where you have a big pump in the market, a big correction, and then you have a big double bottom. And actually, the NASDAQ did this too. This is exactly what the NASDAQ did right after the internet bubble. If we go look at the NASDAQ and we pull up the NASDAQ chart, that's exactly what it did. The NASDAQ did this same thing, right? Had this huge pump right here, big pump, another pump, double bottom, breakout. So what is Dogecoin doing right now in terms of where we're at on the Wall Street cheat sheet? We're not right here. We haven't even broke above the old all-time high on Doge. We're right here. Why do you think everybody is in disbelief that a new cycle is starting? Because that's exactly where we're at in terms of the market cycle Wall Street cheat sheet that everybody knows and loves. This thing right here is incredibly useful to understand, and I know that you do understand this, Pygos, but a lot of people want to call a top on the markets. Ethereum isn't in euphoria. It hasn't even barely broke above its old all-time high. It's not in euphoria. Dogecoin isn't in euphoria. If anything, this thing is in disbelief. Yeah, we can call depression right here at 6 cents. That would have been the depression phase over here on the NASDAQ composite. Would be $1,100 per coin or per stock share of the NASDAQ composite index. The depression phase would have been 6 cents on Dogecoin. The disbelief phase on the NASDAQ would have been $1,400 or $1,300 per share right here. And the disbelief phase on Dogecoin looks like it maybe hit about 10 cents. So in terms of the market cycle, we're not in euphoria. We're not. I mean, do stocks look like they're topping out right now? Not really. They're doing fine. They're not falling off a cliff. So why is everybody so bearish on crypto? Why is everybody such massive crypto bears right now? And to be frankly honest with you, go look at McDonald's, for example, okay? If you want to get a kind of a grip on the world markets, go check out McDonald's. I know it sounds ridiculous, but McDonald's is actually super important to do analysis on. Let's pull up McDonald's on the 1 month time frame here. Let's take a look at this cycle. Okay, this could be the top. Yeah, it could be. But is it? You know, is this really the top of the entire US stock market right now? October of 2025? Or is it possible that this thing goes higher? Is it possible that there's still fuel left to the fire? And for me, when I look at McDonald's right now, and I compare cycles together between what's happening right now with McDonald's and historical cycles that I've been able and had the opportunity to witness, McDonald's looks like it's getting ready for the blow off top. So we have our first sell-off pattern right here. First sell-off on McDonald's. Here's our midway cool-off. Here's our midway cool-off. To me, if you were to ask me what I think about McDonald's, McDonald's looks exactly like Bitcoin right here at around 11,000 per coin. Right before Bitcoin went to 20K. We just had the midway cool-off right here on McDonald's in March of this one was in, March of 2020. That's the midway cool-off on Bitcoin right here. There's a reason it's called the midway cool-off. That means you're halfway up the cycle, not that you're all the way up the cycle. That's why it pretty much doubles in value from the point of the midway cool-off up. Bitcoin was worth 8,000 per coin right here in its midway cool-off, and it topped out at 20. So it basically doubled in value after the midway cool-off happened. And McDonald's could easily go up to $500 per share before this thing tops out. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. So if there's still fuel left in the stock market, if we're if we're really ready to go higher in the stock market and stuff like Dogecoin, which is pretty much your alt season indicator, if Dogecoin is in euphoria, then everything's in euphoria. If things like Dogecoin are still in disbelief, no, I'm not willing to call this the top of the market, even though 90% of the rest of everybody is calling it the top. I'm not willing to do that. And people that I respect, people like XCavo, one of the biggest TradingView accounts in the entire world of TradingView. This guy right here, shout out to XCavo. I actually like this guy. I highly respect him. I really do. He follows me on X. He's a really smart guy. He's cool. I like XCavo. But he's bearish right now, and I don't agree with his analysis that the bear market is starting. I don't agree with him. I see it differently. I respect him, but I see it differently than he does. In my opinion, Dogecoin is right here. And alt season has not happened. And I know he spoke very negatively about alt season in his post on TradingView, saying that alt season is a word he'll never say again, and that he had a very, very negative view about it. You know, I like the guy, I respect him. He's one of the smartest traders I've ever seen. He's really cool. Do I agree with him? No. Have I disagreed with him in the past and been right when he was wrong? Yes. Have I disagreed with him in the past where he was right and I was wrong? Yes. 100%. But I can't agree with his analysis. So that to answer your question, Pygos, no, I don't think the top is in, and no, I don't believe in the 4-year cycle. It's not like it's happened the entire time. It's just something people all believe in because it happened twice. Please do Litecoin. Let's pull up Litecoin. My view on Litecoin has not changed. If you guys have been watching my channel for a minute now, you guys know that I've been comparing Litecoin to Nvidia before Nvidia took off. And if you look at Litecoin and you look at Nvidia, to me, it's really illustrates the same type of thing that's happening right now with the world of crypto. This is why people believe in the 4-year cycle, by the way. Because if you look at Nvidia right here over on the right and Litecoin over here on the left, can you imagine how many people would have believed in an Nvidia, not 4-year cycle, but basically 4-year cycle? Look at this thing. It pumped right here in 01, and then it dumped right here in 02, then it pumped again in 07, then it dumped in 08. Can you imagine how many people would have believed that the Nvidia was just going to pump a little bit and then dump because of a 4-year cycle? Or I don't know if it's exactly 4 years, but there would have been a similar narrative on Nvidia as what there is in crypto right now. But markets are not sine waves, people. Markets don't go like this. Yes, they do have a sine wave cyclical aspect to them, but markets don't just continually go like this forever. That's not what markets do. Markets might go like that for a while, but then they either break up or down out of that pattern. They either break out because it was a big accumulation, or they break down. Markets don't go like a perfect sine wave forever, doing the same buy points and sell points over and over. Otherwise, if that was the truth, if that was the case, then to be a professional trader, all you'd have to do is buy the dip and then sell when it pumped, and then buy the dip and then sell when it pumped. That's all you'd have to know how to do, is just play the 4-year cycle. That's stupid. That's not how markets work. Markets are way more dynamic and can evolve and change, and conditions can change, and institutions can get involved, and what people expect can completely deviate, and you can go into a whole nother realm than what most people think. Markets are not this robotic sine wave. Humans are trading these things. And yes, we are predictable in many ways, but we're also extremely unpredictable in a million other ways. So to me, Litecoin is a perfect example of a really good buying opportunity, and exactly why I don't believe in the 4-year cycle, because this thing is set up to deviate from a 4-year cycle, break out of an accumulation pattern, and go into a mass adoption vertical move. And yeah, of course, people are going to get shaken out before that happens. You really think the big whales are going to make it look like this is going to happen? No. They're going to give you every reason possible to get every single retail investor out of the market. And they've given you your reasons. So you can listen to it or you can not listen to it, but they've given you plenty of reasons to sell your crypto, to get out of the markets, and to get ready for a big bear market. But what if that doesn't happen? What if this deviates completely from what the crowds are thinking is going to happen and goes to the moon and goes parabolic and really does see a mass adoption cycle? If that happens, the people that sell their crypto are going to be really, really, really mad at themselves. They're going to wish they had viewed this market differently. Let's see here. Lego King is cool, says, see ya, everybody. Take care. Hey, thanks for tuning in, man. I appreciate it. Neo says, what's up, brother? What is up? Thank you for tuning in. Fanta says, yo, Dallin, how's my brother? I'm doing good. Thank you for tuning in, Fanta. Robert Richards says, XRP will crash with banks. XRP, the hope for an old system. It will fail. XRP, here's the thing with technologies. You guys, you have to understand something very simple about technologies, okay? They don't get adopted overnight. There's transitionary things that make adoption possible. So, for example, now we all use FaceTime. All right, everybody uses FaceTime or video call platforms to communicate with each other. But before we had FaceTime, we had email and text messages. And before we had email and text messages, we had letters, right? So there was stepping stones that needed to be put in place in order for us to get to the point where we're video calling each other around the world. You know, I can talk to a friend in Nigeria, which, you know, crazy, right? FaceTiming my friend. I can see his face. But in order to get there, we needed email and text messages. So there's stepping stone technologies, right? And XRP, in my view, is a stepping stone technology. We have the world of banks. We have the world of crypto. So we have our traditional finance system. And then we have our new financial system. XRP, the reason I'm so bullish on XRP, Robert, and I appreciate your comment, but I see it a little bit differently. The reason I'm so bullish on XRP is because XRP is that stepping stone from traditional finance into the new world of digital money. And it's a necessary architecture for that to happen, for traditional finance to have a way to get into the world of crypto. So I view XRP as a stepping stone, and an important enough stepping stone that it could gain a huge market share because of how vitally important it is. Think of how big email and text message got before we had FaceTime, right? So that's how I view XRP. From a fundamental perspective, that's the position I take. From a charting perspective, I look at it exactly what I was showing earlier, where XRP is a fractal of itself. So here's XRP's current cycle, and here is XRP in its first cycle ever. As you can see, we have XRP on the right and XRP on the left. And you can see what happened here is actually the same. Big pump, big correction, another pump, another correction, big breakout, another correction. Big pump, another correction, pump, another correction, big breakout, and look what's crazy. Correction right here. If you zoom in on the chart, I'm on a bigger time frame so you can't see it. But the exact same type of thing happened to XRP last time it slightly broke above its old all-time high than what we see right now. So it's doing the same thing. It's just bigger and longer than it was in its first cycle. So this is kind of the position I take on XRP. It's an important stepping stone. The chart looks exactly like the first accumulation cycle it ever went through. The correction that we just saw looks pretty much exactly like the correction we saw last time it broke above its old all-time high out of an accumulation cycle. So I'm bullish on XRP. Justin says, the cycle is based on the debt roll for the U.S., which started in 2008. This roll is extended because of COVID. $10 trillion to roll in the next 12 months. Liquidity is coming, and this is what causes the parabolic run every time. That is interesting. I haven't looked into that. I'd love to learn more about that. Because a lot of people ask me, Dallin, where's the liquidity going to come from? And my position has always been, look at the world money supply. Because the world money supply has done nothing but grow. But it's cool to see the fundamental position that you have on it, because it actually is in alignment with my technicals, Justin. Because my personal, here's the world money supply, right? M2, or this might just be the U.S. money supply, but either way, 22 trillion. This thing is going parabolic. So my response to people that ask me, Dallin, where's the liquidity going to come for a big pump? Well, the world money supply is seriously ramping up inside of a massive parabolic run. So liquidity in today's world is not a problem. Finding places to put that liquidity where it won't go to zero because all of the fiat money is all going to zero is a problem. And that's where crypto comes right in the middle of that and solves the problem of there not being a place to put all of this capital, which is growing at rates that the rich don't even know what to do with. Where can we put this capital where it's not going to go down in value? Because the dollar is not a good store of value. And why do you think stocks go so parabolic? Why do you think the stock market has been in this huge run that looks like it's only going to get bigger before it gets worse, before it finally goes into a bear market? The stock market, the real estate bubble, the gold pump that we're seeing, gold bubble if you want to call it one, all of that is looking like it's only going to become a bigger bubble before it finally bursts, including crypto. If you want to call it a bubble, I like to use the term market cycle. But yeah, it's technically a bubble because prices get overinflated. They get overvalued. So where's the liquidity going to come from? I like your thesis here, Justin. But also, and additionally to that, if you go look at the M2 on TradingView and check this out, you're going to see that the M2 is in this huge uptrend that seriously looks like it's going to go vertical. And then, yeah, it could top out. You know, the world money supply could see a correction. That's not impossible for that to happen. But you guys have to understand that this thing looks like it's going to go higher before it goes lower. And crypto is going to be affected in a very positive way because of that. We're going to have a lot of growth in the crypto markets and in the gold markets and in the silver markets and in the stock market and all of those things. Light clothed, what is up, my friend? Oh, Mike Collins. I thought that's who it was. Your profile picture looked very similar, but yeah, Neo is a really good profile name. I don't know if you ever watched The Matrix before. I kind of love that movie because my last name is Anderson. So when he goes, Mr. Anderson, and he says it in that deep voice, I'm always like, hey, he's talking about me. I'm waking up from The Matrix, man. Oh, man. But yeah, Neo, that's a cool name, man. Telcoin chart looks like it's about to break out of a massive wedge pattern. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I have not covered Telcoin today. Again, for the people that are bearish in crypto, please stop being bearish. Why are you so bearish? Why? Nothing has changed, you guys. This market is set up for big things. I firmly believe that with all of my heart. Telcoin wasn't even affected by the drop, barely. Yeah, it pulled back a little bit, but this is exactly what I mean by all of those bigger coins on big exchanges like Binance and stuff. Yeah, they saw this big scam wick, but that's exactly what it is. It's a scam wick because coins like Telcoin that are mainly traded on places like Uniswap and KuCoin and some of these other exchanges did not even barely drop at all during the correction. In fact, I bet Telcoin versus Ethereum looks really good. Let's check that out. Oh yeah. This is looking like it's bottoming out. Telcoin versus Ethereum. This is perfect. We have our 5 waves up right here. Wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5. ABC. Telcoin versus Ethereum looks amazing right here. This looks really ready to bottom out right here. But Telcoin, the chart that I've been showing you guys in all of my streams, still 100% the same as all of the other streams that I've been showing you it in. It wasn't even affected by that big scam drop in the markets that everybody's freaking out about. It still looks exactly like Ethereum right here. And yeah, it does have like a bit of a wedge structure to it. If you look at it right here, it isn't a wedge. That's a falling wedge. That's a bullish pattern here on Telcoin. So that looks amazing to me. That looks really good. Telcoin is a trooper, man. It didn't even care about the correction. Rio wants me to cover Pepe. Pull up Pepe. See the scam wick? That's exactly what it is. It's a scam. Okay? People are getting scammed. They're selling their crypto because they see it drop and they think it's done and it's over. Come on, you guys. Are you really going to be so small-minded to sell all your crypto after a drop like that? Like, really? Oh, man. Whatever you guys want to do. To me, it just reminds me exactly of what happened when Bitcoin fell in 2024, when it fell down to 50K and everybody was calling for 30K. It feels like a mirror image, like a deja vu of what happened during that period of time. It's just people just do the same stuff over and over again and think that somehow it's going to be different, you know. Let's see here. So as far as Pepe goes, Pepe is doing what's called a first sell-off pattern. So if you study market cycles, this is super important to understand, okay? Every market cycle has, pretty much every cycle, there's some exceptions. Every cycle has a first sell-off pattern. And then the market goes up, it goes parabolic, and then it sees what's called a blow-off top, and then it does what's called a bull trap, where the bulls get trapped, then it goes down to anger, then it usually goes for one more lower low, or at least it does a pretty good chunk of the time. Sometimes it double bottoms instead, but it goes for one more lower low. That's depression. Then it comes out into the suckers rally. Then the disbelief phase is where it double bottoms and it starts a whole new cycle all over again. That's what a market cycle looks like, okay? Now, if you look at Ethereum over here on the right, that's exactly what this was right here. This is called the first sell-off pattern right here on Ethereum. Before the big parabolic run right here that took us to 1,400 per coin in 2017, Ethereum did a first sell-off pattern. That's what this is right here. That's a first sell-off pattern. You can see the market cycle chart. That's also the disbelief phase of the new cycle, first sell-off pattern. So if we zoom out here on Ethereum and just isolate that first sell-off, that's what Pepe just did, okay? Pepe did a first sell-off pattern. If I was to tell you where Pepe is at in its cycle, I would tell you it's right here. That's where Pepe's at. And I remember, too, back when this happened in 2017 and everybody panic sold their crypto over the summer, their altcoins, because they thought it was the top of the bull market. And then guess what happened? It went for one more massive pump and the real euphoric run happened. And then it went for a true bear market. All right. And to me, if you look at Pepe right now, where do you think Pepe's at in its cycle? Does this look like the top of the entire bull market? Or does it look like a first sell-off before the real euphoria and the real pump comes? Like what happened over here on Ethereum, right here. So that's my view on Pepe. Let's see here. John Skemensky says, love the positive vibes, brother. Go Theta, go Theta, go. Yeah, thank you. And go Theta. I'm huge on Theta. I'm super excited about it. The people that are bearish on Theta have no idea what they're doing. Like, I firmly believe that. The people that are bearish on Theta have no idea. They're not even in the realm of reality. They're in this whole other place where they just believe that what they think is going to happen is going to happen. They're not even in the realm of actual fact. It still looks like Ethereum, even though it did do a slightly lower low and Ethereum did a double bottom. Still looks like Ethereum. But it looks, because Cardano is a really good example of what happens when the market goes for one more lower low, when it looks like it's going to double bottom. It's also important to take a look at Cardano over here and check out this lower low that happened right here on Cardano, where it looked like the true bottom was right here and it went for one more lower low. That's where I believe Theta is at right now as I'm talking to you in this live stream. Look what happened to Cardano right after that bottom. Crazy pump. All the way to a new all-time high. And significantly above its old all-time high. Not slightly, but significantly above its old all-time high. So when people tell me that Theta is bearish, I just go, heck no. That you guys have no idea what you're talking about. So yes, thank you, John, for the comment, and I appreciate you tuning in today. Volk says, every time BTC trades sideways, it's lower lows. Then like on this one, it breaks resistance. Hasn't BTC been running the same? You think all good profits roll into BTC Gold? No, I'm kind of at the point now where a lot of people are going to be taking their Bitcoin profits and putting it into altcoins. Even people talk about Grayscale, but everybody's speculating about what Grayscale is doing. Yeah, they took a whole bunch of Bitcoin and transferred it, but you guys don't know what they're going to do. They could buy a bunch of altcoins with it. Everybody just thinks they know what they're going to do with it. You know? You guys don't know for sure. In my view, if there was ever a time for people to transfer their Bitcoin into altcoins, it is right now. Right now. Because here's what's going to happen. We're either going to go like this and go up slightly higher here on Bitcoin dominance and go like this, or we're going to go like this and just start to fall off a cliff. It's either going to do like what it did right here or what it did right here. And either way, that leads to a drop. It just depends on whether we go like whoop, whoop, like that before it happens, right? So yeah, I think that people will be taking their gold profits and their Bitcoin profits and putting it into higher risk assets like altcoins. But really, that's what the smarter whales are doing right now, because the noobs are gonna do that later. They're gonna do that when it's already obvious that that's what's happening. But right now, it's not obvious that that's what's happening, so it's gonna be a very select few people that actually do that. But yeah, I think most people are going to be putting their gold profits into Bitcoin. That's not to say gold won't keep increasing, but I think we will see the crypto markets, I should say, not only Bitcoin, though Bitcoin will do good still. We're going to start to see the crypto markets gain dominance over gold. And silver will definitely start to gain dominance over gold. That's 100% given. Like, silver is going to outperform gold. I know a lot of you guys are big on the gold markets. Silver just broke out of the biggest cup and handle in the history of humanity, probably. This is the biggest cup and handle I've ever seen in my entire life. And I know I'm only 28 years old, but I have been doing charting and stuff since I was like 17. I've been looking at Bitcoin since 2014. So I've seen a lot of trading patterns, a lot of cup and handles. This cup and handle right here is beautiful. This is massive. And the people that are bearish on this right now, the people that think that gold or silver is just going to dump, you guys have no idea what's happening in the bigger context of the cycle. Thankfully, because we're in the hope phase, most people are not bearish. A lot of people do believe this thing will go higher, and that's kind of evidence of the fact that we're starting to go full force in a bull market. But everybody's going to think this thing is bullish at the top, and it won't be. It will finally be overextended. But yeah, silver is definitely going to start pumping versus gold, and crypto should start gaining dominance over gold, even though gold will keep pumping. Yeah, you guys get the point. The Matrix is the best documentary there is. I named my son Neo. It's a really good documentary, I agree. You have to escape your mind and open your mind and realize that you are your own prison guard and you have the keys to unlock your own cell. And once you unlock your own cell, you start to see the world for what it really is, that seriously anything is possible with God. And the Matrix is basically a big metaphor about Jesus Christ, actually, interestingly enough. Neo is the one. He realizes that he can do anything with the power of God in him. It's basically a big documentary on waking up to the truth of reality. RLUSD. You know what the Egyptians believed? They said Egyptian proverb. Let's see which one is it goes. The only limits are the ones you set on yourself. Aha, here it is. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, This is kind of cool. The Egyptian Book of the Dead says all things are possible. Who you are is limited only by who you think you are. And that right there is very Matrix, if you ask me. It's also very pretty much identical to what Jesus Christ said in the Bible, where he said all things are possible to him who believes. A lot of people, they talk about Jesus Christ, but very few people actually believe what he said and believe that it's actually true, The Matrix Breaker says break the Matrix. I agree. Well, we're an hour and 25 minutes in, and as much as I love doing these live streams, you guys get the point. There is a lot of people out there that are 100% bearish. Those people have no idea what they're talking about. It's crazy to me. People are so quick to flip bearish when the big picture cycles, when the big picture setups are the same. They're exactly the same. Nothing has changed. Ethereum needed to have a correction. Bitcoin honestly needed to have a correction. It hit an all-time high. But for some reason, everybody thinks this is the top of the entire cycle, even though we haven't even had a euphoria on altcoins. So, no, I don't believe that this is the top. I firmly believe that crypto has a lot more left coming, that we will see massive, glorious pumps, and that your biggest enemy right now is news, is people that are being swayed by the news. It's people that firmly believe that a bear market is coming. Your biggest enemy is the noise. Tune out from all of it. Stay focused on the charts. Stay focused on holding onto your portfolio. Don't try to overtrade. Don't overlook at it. Don't sell into the dollar. Stay true to yourself, okay? And you'll be glad that you did. Thank you guys for tuning in. I love you. I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you guys in future videos and in future live streams. And as always, stay profitable out there.